Why should we read about the lives of great individuals, famous people, or geniuses? Because we can learn so much from their journeys, discover their intellectual prowess, or find the strength to face life's challenges. We can also learn about their shortcomings, which helps us avoid unnecessary detours. Furthermore, reading the biographies of intelligent people gives us a macro perspective, transcending our personal limitations. Today, I want to share a piece titled, Truly Capable People Choose a Minimalist Lifestyle Early On, drawing from Steve Jobs' biography. Please listen. In 2011, Steve Jobs passed away due to a serious illness. Since then, the world lost a legend. After his passing, Steve Jobs, a biography the only authorized biography with Steve Jobs' cooperation, compiled by the former managing editor of Time magazine, was released and quickly became a global bestseller. Before its publication, Jobs was seen by many as an enigmatic genius. But as the book became more popular, people discovered that this genius was actually someone who lived an incredibly simple life, just as Steve Jobs' guiding principle when designing Apple products stated. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. The same applies to life. A simpler life is a life of higher quality. Minimalism in material possessions. An author once said that if a person prioritizes material indulgence too much, they will pay the price with their spirit. In today's bustling, noisy society, we are constantly chasing material desires. It's only when we are exhausted and deeply burdened by suffering that we realize we are holding onto too many useless things. We need to learn to simplify our desires to move forward lightly. In Steve Jobs' biography, there's a story. One time, Bill and Melinda Gates visited Steve Jobs and his wife. Before opening the door, Bill Gates glanced at Jobs' house with astonishment. "Do you and your family all live here?" Indeed, at that time, Bill Gates was building a 66,000 square foot mansion, while Jobs' family home was made of red brick with a roof of small, round tiles, no different from any ordinary house outside. Jobs was not obsessed with buying yachts, villas, or designer clothes. Someone even noted that from 1998 to 2010, at every Apple product launch, Jobs wore the same black t-shirt and blue jeans. He pursued minimalism throughout his life. Less is more. The fewer material desires a person has, the richer their contemplation of life becomes. I once watched a TED Talk by the famous American author, speaker, and philanthropist Joshua Becker. In the eyes of the world, Becker was undoubtedly a truly successful man. He owned 150 stores, and from a young age could freely buy luxury cars, villas, or any extremely expensive product he desired. However, these endless material desires made him weary in his pursuit of wealth. When his mother passed away, he was busy making money. When his children needed their father's companionship at every step of their growth, he was absent. Becker began to reflect on what he truly needed. He then quit his high-paying job, downsized 75% of his possessions, and decluttered 90% of the unnecessary items in his house, leaving only 288 essential items. He realized that when he shed the unnecessary, his life became simpler and more meaningful. He had enough time and energy to do what he loved. As Becker said, we discard the 90% that is not important in our lives, and the remaining 10% will give us more than that. This echoes the saying, only by discarding the tangible can we change the intangible world. When we have the courage to abandon endless desires and organize our lives more effectively, we can attain a much freer and richer existence. Material minimalism is, in essence, a way to create a new life for ourselves, full of deeper meaning. Minimalism in work. Steve Jobs said, "I like a minimalist life." But Steve Jobs' minimalist lifestyle wasn't just reflected in his personal life, it also applied to his work. In his biography, there's a story. In 1983, Jobs and the Apple board of directors disagreed on business philosophy. In despair, he left Apple and founded his own company. However, after Jobs left, Apple rapidly declined. By 1997, Apple had lost $1.04 billion and was in dire straits. To salvage the situation, the board was forced to swallow its pride and ask Jobs to return. When Jobs returned, the first thing he did was cut 70% of the projects. The management at the time expressed strong dissatisfaction with Jobs' actions, but as soon as Jobs resolutely cut these unnecessary projects, Apple revived. The company's stock price increased by 33%, and its market value grew by $830 million. For Apple, Jobs also pursued simplicity, from company management to product design and advertising campaigns. He believed everything should be done with simplicity, and the result was the minimalist iPhone 4. Many people came to Jobs admiring his talent, but also left because they couldn't endure his personality. On this matter, Jobs said, "I like to associate with smart people because they don't have to consider their dignity." Do smart people have no dignity? Of course not. It's just that they don't care about saving face and always prioritize their personal growth. This allows them to maintain an open mind at all times. Steve Jobs never wasted time praising or pleasing anyone because he believed that instead of wasting time on unnecessary people, it was better to spend time growing with intelligent people. Therefore, those who could endure high pressure not only became leaders in their fields, but also became Jobs' lifelong close friends. The adult world is not as complicated as we think. We might think an apple is delicious for many reasons, but someone else might think a banana is delicious, also for many reasons. That doesn't matter. We don't necessarily have to try to change each other, and a comfortable relationship just needs that. I eat apples with people who like apples, you eat bananas with people who like bananas. As adults, we should live like this. Each person satisfies their own preferences. We don't need to live to convince others, nor do we need others to convince us. In relationships, we just need to choose, not change. Different personalities in life views what's wrong with that. Why do we need to force uniformity? Anything that makes you bow your head to win, anything that demands you expend all your effort to fit in with someone or some group, is a mistake. Sanma once said, "I stay away from relationships that are not important but too overly enthusiastic and intimate." That makes me feel heavy, burdened. I don't talk a lot of unnecessary small talk. That makes me feel refreshed. I love someone carefully because I don't let my feelings run wild. I don't need deep intensity. I just long for a simple, comfortable relationship. A comfortable relationship must be a simple one. Minimalism in life. A famous Taiwanese cartoonist dedicated his life to a principle: live the simplest life, doing the most spiritual things. If he ate only one meal a day, even steamed buns with soft tofu tasted delicious. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, who founded Epicureanism, a philosophical school of thought that advocated for a life of pleasure, serenity, and freedom from pain and fear, had very few possessions. He ate only bread, olives, and water daily, with a little cheese on special occasions. He once wrote, "When we say that pleasure is the end goal, we do not mean the pleasures of the prodigal or those of sensuality. Rather, it means that we are free from bodily pain and mental anxiety. It is not from endless drinking, nor from carnal pleasures or sexual relations, nor from enjoying fish or any star dish, but from a sober mind that investigates the reasons for all choice and avoidance, and that drives out those beliefs through which the greatest tumults take possession of the soul." Indeed, the sweetness of life comes from simple pleasures. The joy of life always comes from letting go, reducing, and becoming simpler. In Steve Jobs' biography, there's a detail. When Stephen Jobs became world famous, he was a billionaire known to everyone, but his house had no bodyguards, no live-in servants. In fact, people didn't even lock the back door during the day. At that time, everyone around was constantly spending and showing off, but Jobs said, "I saw people at Apple, people who, after making a lot of money, felt like they would have a different life. They bought supercars and many houses, each house with a housekeeper, then hired a manager for all those housekeepers. Their wives underwent plastic surgery that made them eccentric. This is not how I want to live. I promised myself I wouldn't let money ruin my life." There were only 3 most important things in Jobs' life: career, music, and family. When he had cancer and could no longer direct Apple's operations, the most important things in his life were reduced to 2: family and music. At that time, Apple employees knew Jobs was ill and offered to hold a farewell party for him. However, he always refused and chose to go home to eat dinner with his family. In his view, happiness is actually very simple: having a home to return to, someone waiting, and a light lit for you. As the writer Lin Yudeng once said, what is called happiness is 1. Sleeping in your own bed, 2. Eating food cooked by your parents, 3. Hearing your loved ones say loving words to you, and 4. Playing with your children. You might think such a routine is dull, repeating day after day, but that is precisely the kind of happiness that cannot be replicated. Don't you see? The most valuable things are actually the simplest. Jobs said, "I have this mantra, focus and simplicity. Simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. But it's worth it in the end because once you get there, you can move mountains. The simpler your life, the more you can enjoy the joy, sweetness, and beauty in the world. Let go of unnecessary material desires. Let go of unnecessary pursuits. Set aside unnecessary relationships to gain more strength and deepen the richness of your own life."